I was watching an old David Bowie interview recently, and he was talking about the importance of pushing yourself and just getting yourself out of your depth a little.
And if the other thing I would say is that if you feel safe in the area that you're working in, you're not working in the right area. Always go a little further into the water than you feel you're capable of being in. Go a little bit out of your depth, and when you don't feel that your feet are quite touching the bottom, you're just about in the right place to do something exciting.
Now, after watching that particular excerpt from the interview, I thought, yeah, there was a time when I did that. I would push myself and I would be out of my depth. It gave me great success. It was quite rewarding to do that. And then when I retired, I sort of, was just ready to have a break from everything, just to let it all go. And I stopped pushing myself and I stopped getting out of my comfort zone. After watching that video just recently, I thought, you know what? I still should be pushing myself. I should still be reaching for something. I should still have a goal. I should still be making myself feel uncomfortable from time to time. And I recently had two opportunities to do that. The first one being a show that a good friend of mine has put together and is successfully showing around Australia at the moment. And that's his Bonegilla or Bonegilla show. And it's a migrant, I think it's called Bonegilla, The Migrant's Journey or something like that. I can't remember the exact title, but it's a great show. And recently it was showing in Ballarat to a sold-out audience. And Simon invited me to the show, which was great. So I went to see the show. But he said, "Do you mind taking some photos, like of the event, of people in the event, and things like that?" And I thought, oh boy, it's been a while. I said yes, but it's been a while since I've shot anything. I'm into photography and I've done a lot of photography, but never commercially or anything like that. And I said yes, and not long after I was regretting saying yes. I was thinking, oh, what have I got myself in for, And so on the morning of the show, I got my cameras out. And I've got a few lenses, so I'm working out. I'm thinking about the event, and it's going to be low light. Which camera is going to handle that the best? And then also which camera is going to be able to capture the scene, but also give me good feedback as to what I'm seeing with fast autofocus, good dynamic range, which lens, what is the fastest lens I've got. All these things were going through my head. So I did some test shots on the morning of the show, and then come showtime, and I roll in there about an hour early, and I introduce myself to the staff there that are running the event and the ushers and things like that. And I told them that Simon had asked me to take some shots, so they organised like a press pass sort of a visitor card for me to wear. And then I just went around the venue, and Simon was up on stage, and he's sort of getting things ready, and he's doing some playthroughs and things like that. So I'm just taking some shots and some sort of atmospheric shots. And he did ask me to get some shots of people in the foyer and gathering and things like that. So here's the shots as I'm talking. I'll put the shots up for you to see. And it was stressful. I'm not going to lie, it was stressful because I hadn't done anything like this for a long time. And, I didn't have the ideal equipment, and I just had to, make it work. And this was a classic example of putting yourself out of your comfort zone and just pushing yourself a little. And so even though it was stressful, I enjoyed the show. I pre-show took a heap of shots and got photos, and I got some shots after the show as Simon's talking to the audience and the crowd. And I came away from there. I actually had enjoyed myself towards the end of the event, and I was really pleased with the shots I got. Now, and Simon loved them as well. He said they were marvellous. So, and he's been using them in his on Facebook and things like that. And so, for me, that turned out to be a great success. It was something that was super stressful, and I was regretting taking it on. But once it was all said and done, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I was very pleased with what I was able to get with the equipment I had, and in that short time to get ready. That's just one example of putting yourself out of your comfort zone. And then the next example was the Indian motorcycle Ballarat shop ride on the weekend. Now, typically, or usually, I'm tail end Charlie, which is I'm at the back, and if someone breaks down or whatever, we offer assistance and phone ahead, let people know let the group, the ride leader, know what's happening, and that's typically the role I take on for those rides. Now, Ben, who normally leads the rides and does a fantastic job, he couldn't make it for this ride, and so Mark asked me, a couple of days before, if I could lead the ride, and it was a ride to Hanging Rock. And I thought, okay. I said yes, but, again, I'm out of my comfort zone. I hadn't sort of led a decent group. I've taken a few people, but not a decent-sized group on a ride like we did on the weekend. But I thought, you know what? I've got to push myself. I've got to get myself out of my comfort zone and just do the best job I can. So a couple of days, I had a couple of days to prepare, and I worked out the route that I'd like to take. And I talked to Mark about it, and he said, well, you do what you want to do, and the goal is to get to Hanging Rock. And I thought, if we're going to do it, I want to do a nice, interesting route where we're not just on freeways and highways, where we're just going through all the countryside and make it a fun journey getting there. So I had stops and things like that along the way. I had a bit of a talk to everyone. There's about 14 bikes, about 16 people, I think, on the ride, and just sort of really thought about, how we're going to ride, explain staggered riding, and how I really didn't want to see people passing because, the potholes on the roads and things, people need to be able to move left and right in their lane. So just be prepared that people are going to be shifting around, and passing is probably not going to be the ideal thing to be doing on a ride like today. And I took great care to make sure the group stayed together, and just try to do the best job I could. It was my first time doing it. I was definitely out of my comfort zone, and boy, I've had my maps up and my routes planned, and it was a lot to think about. And I was watching my mirrors, and I had Neil was tailing Charlie, and he did a fantastic job. He gave me a wave when they were clear to get going again, and we kept the group together. So it was really good. It's hard on these sort of things, these sort of rides, to have everything go exactly to plan and to perfection. I think you've got to be flexible and just go with the flow a little bit. Well, that's my philosophy. But I think overall it was a good day, and we had a great ride. Weather was great. It was the rain held up, light winds, was about 20 odd degrees. It was warmish, so so it was good. And there again, there's a second opportunity to push myself and put myself out of my depth, and I enjoyed it. And I came away knowing that, okay, well, I can do that now. In hindsight, hindsight's a beautiful thing. And it's like I might be, being too hard on myself. It went really well up until we didn't get to Hanging Rock. I think that was my, on reflection, I wish we had got to Hanging Rock because that was the goal. But anyway, I think everyone still had a really good time and had a good ride. And next time, I know what we're going to do next time and how to better plan it and what to prepare for. And I think, it's all a learning experience. So thanks to everyone who came on the ride, and I hope you had a good time, and I hope it was worth going on. But anyway, getting back to my point, pushing yourself and just putting yourself out of your depth a little. And as David Bowie said, just have your feet, not touching the bottom and just treading water, I think is a really good thing. And I think it's something I'm going to do on a regular basis going forward, because each time I do that in the last couple of months doing that, I've felt myself start to grow again rather than be stagnant, if you like. But anyway, just thought I'd share that. I don't know if I'll make this a member video. I'll put it on the main channel, but I thought it was worth sharing. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye for now.